Hi, everybody. Today is a bit of an unusual day, but I am going to welcome you to the show. My name is Elizabeth Spraggins. I am the founder of All Joy Inspired and the owner of Digging from Darkness, Living in Light, a mastermind community of business owners and mentors who give back to the community by sharing their expertise and their life experience with other folks who might be going through a hard time. Today, we have an unusual show. Today is something a little bit different. It's actually very different. And I got to tell you, this really stressed me out. I've been working on this for 3 days. Now, normally I get a day or two, but I have been solidly working on this for 3 days. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. I have recorded 2 different interviews, and I've managed to use them both for the same purpose of expressing what we're trying to explain today. So, before we begin, I want to give a huge, hearty, loving shout out to Beardo and all the guys and girls over at beardvet.com. Beardvet.com, they are an amazing group of people, owned and operated by veterans, and they donate portions of their profits to veteran causes. So go over to beardvet.com and say hi to the fellas and tell them everyone at All Joy Inspired says, yep. We have had a bit of coffee today, but it's kind of late, so we are going to be sipping on some water because it's Saturday night, and I don't want caffeine to interfere with my buzz. I'm kidding. I'm actually stone cold sober right now. Well, for now, anyway. So today's episode is going to be about how strong people, the strongest people, have conquered the deepest fear. I have been so frazzled today, you guys. I'm not going to try to BS you. I have been frazzled. I tried to get this together on time for the 4:00 show. I tried, but at least the show is happening today, right? The show is happening today. So that to me is a win because I could have been like, nah, I'm not going to do it. It's Saturday night. I want to go home. My wonderful husband is waiting for his bride to come home from the office. I've been here now for 13 hours. It's going to be going on 14 hours by the time I get out of here. So I'm dedicated to you guys because I appreciate every one of you. And if my message and this message of our guest today can reach at least one person and assist in one person's suffering, then I consider the effort worth it. So without further ado, we're going to get started. But because of the magnitude of the effort required to put all this together today, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Okay. We're just going to do things a little differently. So what happens when you experience an abusive relationship or a traumatic event? Now, there are all kinds of traumas, but what we're talking about today is leaving behind an abusive relationship and carrying those effects that abuse had on you into life beyond that point, and how it can really be detrimental to building a new life with, yourself in a more healthy way, and then later down the road with someone special who's going to be good to you. So examples of trauma that can interfere with creating your goals. And we're talking about this because trauma and abusive relationships can cause harm to someone's mindset, and it can keep them from being able to focus on moving forward with these awesome goals of creating this amazing new life, or even with small goals that are important to you. If you've got some of this trauma from a bad relationship in your past weighing you down, it can cause you a lot of problems. But some examples of severe trauma that can cause this sort of mindset harm are, number one, and we all have heard about this, trauma from a battlefield. Our wonderful and beloved veterans, male and female, who come home after experiencing combat, they live with very real trauma. And sadly, many of them become one of what is called one of 22. 22 veterans every day, they don't make it to see their next day. And others that do make it to see their next day, they live with a constant battle in their minds. So first and foremost, God bless you to all of our veterans. And thank you so much for sacrificing your time with your families and potentially your physical health or your mental health to do what you do. There are many of us out here who truly appreciate what it is that you have chosen to do. So thank you. And I wish you nothing but good health and happiness in your futures. Other examples of severe trauma could be the loss of a loved one, a sudden death, or the death of a child. Can really cause this severe interruption in your ability to focus on anything for a very long time, right? Divorce. I happen to be an expert at divorce. I'm becoming an expert now, being married to one man and staying married to one man. So I'm working on 7 years, actually. Just celebrated 7 years with my wonderful husband. Hi, honey. I'm so sorry I'm late coming home right now. I know you're not mad, but I want to say I'm sorry anyway. So I'm working on staying married to a husband for a change. But yeah, divorce can absolutely F up your world. Absolutely F up everything. And illness. We got a lot going on right now. You know what? I forgot my music. Okay. I turned it down to 4. I just like it. I like my music. And illness. We got a lot of illness circulating in the world these days. A lot of illness. And from what these unelected world leaders tell us, there's going to be more illness coming, and we should all be very, very afraid. But nonetheless, a devastating illness such as cancer or heart condition or even uncontrolled diabetes or blood pressure, any kind of illness that interrupts your ability to focus on your day can absolutely get in your way of creating goals for yourself or achieving your goals. A job loss. Well, for me, I totally understand what that's about. When you have a career change, even a sudden career change, no matter what the reason is, it is going to cause you the requirement to refocus. You've got to focus on these new things. And if you're still living in the past, especially if leaving that job was caused because somebody was abusive, if your boss or colleagues were bullies or just awful people, and all of a sudden, bam, you find yourself without a job. Yeah, that can cause you some problems. Or surviving a violent crime. This kind of ties into, it does. I'm not going to say kind of, but surviving violent crime includes domestic abuse. And domestic abuse happens to men and women. It happens to both. There are men in relationships with women, and of course, with men. But men are affected by domestic abuse as well. Domestic abuse comes in several different forms: sexual, mental or psychological, and physical. All three are a crime, but very rarely will you ever hear about men speaking up about this. So, what happens if you or a loved one is living or trying to live beyond domestic abuse? What do you do with that trauma? Well, I'm going to tell you, we are going to meet some very special people. I'm going to introduce you to a very good friend of All Joy Inspired. His name is Rob Marshall. Rob Marshall is a really good person. I've known Rob for several years now. I don't want to give away too much because Rob's an interesting cat. Now, I'll give you a little background on Rob that he doesn't explain. And our video content had to be edited for content and time, which means I had to put this thing together to blend with our other expert on the panel today, who I'll introduce to you in a second. Rob's a simple man, just an everyday good guy like you, or I'm not a guy, but just a good person like you or like me. Just wants to live a quiet life, just wants to go on about his business. And, one day Rob got married, had some kids. The marriage soured in a fairly awful way. And because of Rob's beliefs and Rob's morals, he didn't want to run around shouting and causing a fuss about it, trying to attention seek. Rob's choices to deal with the ending of that abusive marriage wound up putting him in more of a tough spot than the actual abusive marriage did. So you guys are going to get to know Rob. But what we are celebrating about Rob and about his journey is that even after years of living with the effects of being abused by his now ex-wife, Rob is moving forward. He's making a choice to rebuild a new life and leave the trauma of that abuse behind him so he can move forward and discover for himself a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life. But I don't want to give away too much. The next person you're going to meet today is going to be Derek Kozlowski. Derek Kozlowski is another life coach that I went to school with. We both went to the same business school. We went to the same empowerment school. So there are two different schools that we went to. Rob and I, excuse me. I got two people on the braid today. I normally don't do this. I don't think I've ever done this before today. Derek and I went to the same courses. We went to the same school. So Derek is another life coach. He's getting ready to launch his business. But the reason I brought Derek on the show today is because I wanted to show all of you out there, one, that it's not just women who are life coaches. There are men who are life coaches. And two, that there are men of all walks of life who are life coaches. Derek is also a very interesting person. Derek's life experience is something you see in movies. Not my kind of movies. You don't need to get nasty. But you have definitely read books and heard stories and seen movies about men like Derek. And Derek is a very special man as well. Derek has also been through a life experience that left him a little scarred. But instead of giving up, even though that very nearly was the case one day, Derek decided to move forward and show others how to get past that devastating moment that 22 men and women don't get past every day. So without further ado, we are going to move forward. Here we go. As an incredibly interesting life experience that relates to a lot of you out there who may or may not be either going through trauma or trying to live beyond trauma. Derek is a master business owner. He is also a life coach, and he is getting ready to launch an incredible service in the very near future that I think a lot of you might want to hear about. So, hi, Derek.
Hey, Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and having me on.
I'm so happy we got a chance to sit down. I know I've been trying to do this for several months now, and I apologize. But as you know, as a business owner, it's just something is always happening, and you got to be adapt and overcome, right? So would you please tell everyone who's watching today where you came from? And by that, I mean how you became to be the person you are today. What is that life experience that some people may still be going through that might be inhibiting their ability to move forward? I would love to hear your story.
Went in the U.S. Army right out of high school at 18. I was at Fort Bragg, was deployed to Desert Storm, did my tour over there. I had a combat squad in an advanced tactical unit, and I was pinned sergeant, 36 hours of my feet touching the beach when we got in. Put in charge of all my best friends. We're in combat. We got through it. I didn't lose any of my guys personally. We did lose people that were very near to the unit in the same brigade. And I came home. And within a month of coming home, I was out of the military. I came back stateside and I started school. This was in April, and was a train wreck. Every time the refrigerator turned off, I woke up because I associated it with the sound of generators, loud noises, fits of rage, sweats that I couldn't explain. A deodorant wouldn't work, to the point that I eventually put a gun in my mouth and said, I'm done. And I prayed and I said, God, give me one reason not to. So I wasn't even looking for a reason to live. I was just looking for a reason not to die. The reason I got was, no one's going to find you until they smell you. I was literally so far at the bottom, that's all it took. I thought, I can't put my parents through that, and that was enough. From that day forward, I said, okay, I've got to learn how to live with this. A couple weeks later, I broke into a rage when a contractor was at the house. He happened to be a Vietnam veteran. And I'll never forget, he sat me down on the porch and he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Do you understand what's happening?" He said, "Stop. Do you understand what's happening to you?" And I said, "No." He said, "Brother," he said, "you need to go to the VA." He said, "I've been in Vietnam, went through it. This is what I see. Go to the VA. You got to deal with this." So I spent the next 30 years, 3 broken marriages, broken relationships, missed job opportunities, fights, just issues, drugs, whatever, alcohol. I was a train wreck. I was, however, wise enough to go seek private counseling, but I basically lived 30 years in shame. I thought I was broken. Finally got confronted because I was looking for any type of self-help, self-improvement to make this go away because I'm ashamed of myself. I don't like myself. I despise myself.
Did you figure out what it was about yourself that you were ashamed of?
Yeah, that I wasn't good enough.
Who said that? Was it something you said to yourself?
It's self-talk. It was something that came out of childhood. And I had a great upbringing, but it was something that came out of childhood. But what I realize now is while I was there, I was constantly trying to prove I was enough and not showing fear, not letting anyone else see the fear,
right?
Keeping it inside. I was scared to death.
Of course.
Keeping it inside and bottling everything up and just letting rage take the place of your fear.
It's easier to feel rage than it is to feel afraid.
It is. And that's essentially what it was. I hadn't forgiven myself. And there were a few key things that took place. People would look at me and say, "Why would that even affect you?"
Some people would understand, though, and there are a lot of people that do, Derek.
And I looked at that and I knew without a doubt, no matter what we did over there, that was because of us. We did that. I did that. How do you forgive that?
I have a very close friend of All Joy Inspired, and I have permission to share this interview with you because you, as a man, the feelings of men and women and their visions of the world, even though they have similar values, right, their viewpoints of the world and of themselves in the world are different. I wanted to share this interview with our good friend Rob Marshall with you, and I wanted to ask you how your program could help someone like. Would you like to watch that with me?
Yes, absolutely.
Why don't you tell everybody out there a little bit about yourself?
I'm Rob Marshall. Pretty much about me, like I said, I work for Anheuser-Busch. Been an employee there for 18 years. Hardworking, dad of 3 girls.
You have 3 little girls?
3, yeah. Actually, my oldest is 23.
Wow.
And the youngest is going to be 11.
Time flies, huh?
Yeah, it does. Right now, just doing the work and just trying to stay busy. Excited to be here.
Here's what we know so far about Rob. I've actually known Rob for several years now. What you're hearing so far, Derek, is that on the outside, Rob is a regular guy. He's got a regular job. He's a single father of 3 girls. One of them's an adult and 2 are younger. To people on the outside, like someone who would be meeting you or one of your clients or students for the first time, most people who are experiencing or navigating trauma, they're just regular people, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But a person and professionals like you and like me, we see this all the time. And they live with a mask on in order to live with that pain that they haven't resolved yet. Have you seen this so far in your practice?
Yes, I have. And let me say up front, trauma is not picky.
Right.
It doesn't care what you've been through. Trauma, PTSD, it doesn't care what the initiator was. It's all the same. Your trigger may be different, but it's all the same for all of us, the feelings that you get. So yes, I've seen it in cancer victims. I've seen it in trafficking victims, sexual assault, physical assault,
yes,
parental abuse. It's universal.
So before we get into your program, I want to get into who your program can help. So your program is meant to help people who are relearning their dignity after being ashamed of something or embarrassed or something or damaged by something that has hurt them in the past. So are all people welcome to learn about your business?
Anyone's welcome. It's what I realized was working at home or in an internet business, There are some people that's the only avenue they'll have to work in, and it should be available to them. Someone in there needs to hear what you have to say, even if all you have to say is, I don't feel I'm good enough.
Oh my God, yeah. That's practically everybody on there.
None of us do. None of us feel we're good enough. So just...
Even today. Oh, heck. I forgot to push the darn button, but I did not forget to unmute the mic. So, excuse me, I was choking while that video was playing. See, you're getting to know a little bit about Rob, our friend of All Joy Inspired, and Derek, one of my colleagues in the field. Derek specializes in acute, extreme trauma. So when someone has chronic trauma, even though it may have happened a while ago, Derek understands the language. And I wanted to share this interview with Rob in its entirety. He actually watched the entire thing. You guys, with Rob's permission, I will share the entire interview. But for the purposes of this show, we shared the part of it that relates to what we're discussing today. Derek immediately understood where Rob was coming from. And we were talking about the effects of trauma if you don't resolve it, face it, and do what you need to do to stay healthy in your mind, body, and spirit, that it can cause you damage. And some of the effects of trauma can be panic disorder, anxiety disorder, or maybe you're self-isolating, and that can cause you a deep, dangerous depression. It can cause problems in marriages or relationships. It can lead someone to choose addiction. And there are many different kinds of addiction or other self-destructive habits. So in Rob's case, well, I don't want to give too much away, but Rob suffered for a minute. And then when he thought he found the answer to the suffering, he chose something he thought would be comforting that actually wound up making things in his life worse. And it got to the point where Rob felt like his life had totally fallen apart. And even years after the fact, Rob is still learning to make his way beyond the effects of the damage that caused. So we are going to move on because it is Saturday night in Las Vegas and I'm starting to feel perky. And I can't wait to go home to my amazing husband. Oh, poor thing is waiting for hours. All right, you guys, let's get this show on the road. Right now, and what people are about to learn is why someone who looks as rough and tough and someone who just wants to live a normal life chose certain means of lifestyle in order to navigate what he's about to tell you he went through. Do you find that a lot of men and women who've been through pretty severe and extreme trauma, they try different things. Like you said earlier, a lot of them lead to addiction, who are trying to navigate pain and shame and embarrassment. So what you're learning about Rob right now is that Rob, after experiencing these awful things that he's about to describe, he tried to go the route of nature. He tried to go the route of seeing positivity in the world with him, but without confronting the pain and the shame and the embarrassment. That trauma still has a grip on him, and we are in the process of teaching him how to deal with that. Do you find, Derek, that some people who come to you finally when they feel like they have no other options, that they've tried many positive things that haven't quite worked out? What have you seen about that?
I have.
You're just a man with simple, a simple life, and you're not a complicated guy. You've always just been really kind to people, and it's one of the things I instantly appreciated about you, which is probably why we're friends. Yeah. Is because you're just a down-to-earth, decent person. In a world today where there's a lot of not decency happening, and there's a lot of not good people trying to cram things down your throat, that can lead to some friction.
I went through marriage almost 11 years. It was good to start, but then it just sort of fizzled out.
Things changed?
Yeah, things changed with my relationship with my ex.
And that must have been pretty hard for you.
Yeah, it was. I had an ex that was just wanting to control. Basically, I needed to be the puppet.
Men and women both either navigate or depart from relationships that are controlling. And that, whether or not you're out there and you want to confront that reality that a controlling marriage or a controlling relationship can cause you damage, and it can cause it's labeled mental psychological abuse. So this is a form of abuse. So you and your spouse parted ways.
Yeah, it went from bad to worse with me.
Okay.
After my marriage, I got involved with another female.
Sure.
I was still married at the time, so
Okay.
got involved with somebody else.
We own our choices. So if you are out there and you are in the middle of this situation, you are included in this conversation. If you're at the end of a marriage or you're in a troubled marriage and you choose to begin a relationship with someone else, I want you to listen closely to what Rob has to say, because often what we think is making us feel better about a rotten relationship we're trying to leave can do what?
Yeah, cause more damage. Don't have an extensive history of dating, but just trying to meet the right people out there, it's become pretty hard.
Sure.
Trying to distinguish who is actually their true self from somebody that's devious or deceitful, that's manipulative.
We use the term gold diggers as professional and former professional hoes.
Yeah.
Gold digger.
Not all of them are gold diggers, but you just don't know what their true intentions are when you meet them. And so, some do have that ability to want to just dig into your pockets, and
They sure do. Or they want something out of you.
yeah.
So you, as an expert in trauma recovery, do you find when you're talking about addictions or you're talking about self-destructive habits, what have you seen as far as people trying other things while not confronting their trauma, but trying to feel better about it? What have you seen?
So we usually end up in a similar, if not worse, just like Rob describes. You tend to replace a bad with a bad, whether it's with an addiction, sexual addiction, drugs, alcohol, looking for somebody else to make you feel good, when we often, if we've not healed, you're going to attract the same thing, and now you could double the trauma. Plus you're shamed for doing it.
The shame. Why do you find that people, why they choose something similar and hoping to get a different result? Why do you think people do that?
I don't think, and I'm going to say even me, I don't think you choose to get something. I don't think it's because you want to. It's because it's familiar. And because it's familiar, often you don't recognize that, whoa, this is the same thing.
And why is that?
I think just because familiar is safe. When you've been through trauma, you're always seeking safety.
Yes.
And so him getting back into a situation with another woman who treated him harshly, he was just looking for safety, and he found safety in the familiar.
And it's been my experience that when people choose something similar to the situation or trying to leave behind them, it's because they're trying to get a different result. In the traumatizing situation in which they blame themselves for being the reason it all fell apart, it all became this horrible thing that they're ashamed of. I found that people subconsciously want to experience that same environment again with hopes that the result will be different so they can feel better about the first time they experienced it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate this. We've just got a few more minutes of this, and then I would love to talk more about your program because I'm actually excited about that. Derek's fantastic, and I've had the absolute pleasure of knowing Derek for some time as well, and he is especially skilled in being able to reach people in distress. So he has my utmost respect. Derek is a unique individual in that Derek has survived not only combat, but the suicidal depression that followed his combat experience. And instead of caving to that desire to feel that bad all the time, and instead of caving to that desire to end his life, Derek chose to live one more day and one more day and one more day until it came to Derek that he could save lives with that horrible moment he experienced. So when we're talking about Rob, I wanted to do justice by Rob's interview. Now, parts of Rob's interview were a little sensitive, and I left some parts of it out just to respect Rob and his privacy and his home life. But yeah, Rob experienced some pretty awful things in his marriage. that nobody should have to experience. You know, abuse is not always physical or sexual. Abuse can be just as traumatizing if it's psychological. And if you're out there and you've suffered psychological abuse at the hands of your spouse, and then that marriage, for whatever reason, ended, you know, just like I do, how much harm can come to you because of that experience. So it's been about 4 years for Rob, and Rob's attempting to move on with his life and start fresh with maybe looking for somebody new. And he is setting goals for himself to be able to step into that new lifestyle that he'd like to create. So if it's you out there, and this is something that you've gone through, what do you do to move on? What are some things that you absolutely need to do in order to begin that process of building a new life for yourself, of creating that lifestyle transformation? Well, first and foremost, if you're experiencing any kind of depression or medical injury because of the abuse that you experienced, immediately make it a point to see your doctor. Go see your doctor for any physical or sexual injuries, and that might include STIs or other intimate injuries that may or may not have happened at the hands of your former spouse. Or if you're experiencing mental health crisis. Absolutely. Very first thing I recommend that you do is go to your doctor. Get the medical or mental health treatment that you need in order to see one more day and one more day and one more day until you decide that there's a new path you would like to pursue. Medical injuries come absolutely first. Addiction comes absolutely first. Until you get those two things or that category of things under control, nothing else you try is going to matter. See your doctor first. Second, if you have a problem with substance or alcohol abuse, it is absolutely necessary that you face that head on and get sober. When I was going through my last divorce from horribly abusive person, and yes, there was different types of abuse involved, I was drinking a lot. Now, I was a functioning drunk, and thankfully for me, for whatever reason, I did not develop an addiction. I had a habit. So I was able to put it down one day and not have an issue with it again once the reason I chose to do it was gone. But there are some people out there who get into a situation with substance and alcohol and they cannot put it down. They physically need it because their body chemistry has changed to require the substance or require the alcohol in order to feel normal. And if this is you, there is absolutely no shame. There is no shame in having an addiction and wanting to get sober, or in having an addiction and wanting whatever that is out of your life, because there are many different kinds of addiction. There's sex addiction, there's gambling, there's shopping, there's drinking, there's drugs. Anything in that category, if you have a genuine problem with it, not a single person alive who is worth being a part of your world will give you a hard time for wanting to get help. And there are professionals in all categories of addiction who can help you manage and defeat the things in this addiction that are holding you back. Get help for addiction if that is a problem for you. Woo! And again, seeking mental health assistance with a therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist or even a counselor. Coaches and therapists are very different. Coaches will sit in front of you. You tell them what your goal is, what you want to accomplish, and together you discover and declare what it is about your habits that's getting in the way. And then we establish a plan step by step by step and through the process with accountability and guidance, help you to make those goals. Mental health professionals such as psychiatrists, psychologists, or a therapist, counselor, they help you discover why you keep creating these habits that are messing up your life or causing you or others harm. The why and the how are two different professionals. Often people think that coaches are counselors or therapists. We're not. We're not mental health professionals. I am a lifestyle transformation specialist. I am a goal achieving oriented specialist. I'm a specialist in a lot of things with life experience and whatnot. And yes, I can compassionately guide, but I'm not a mental health professional. If you are having mental health issues, say for instance, you might be bipolar, you may have schizophrenia, you may be dealing with clinical depression, you need medical help for that. So seek that mental health professional to help you balance those conditions that you might be having. Or hire a coach if you're not having mental health, you're just having trouble focusing or creating a plan because you don't know where to start. Or you feel stuck. You thought you tried everything, but you can't quite put the pieces together. Or you need a translator for the mistakes you might be making. You might need someone to help you see where you're going wrong in all of your plan, right? That's what coaches are for. Hire a coach in that instance. Find faith or meditation. If you're not into a faith, meaning a belief in a higher power, meditation. But for my life experience and what I'm familiar with, I recommend find a faith. When you have a deep void in your heart and in your spirit, finding a belief and a connection to a higher power can bring you the most beautiful joy. It can bring you a calm and a serenity from the stress and the fear of experiencing that trauma that no mental health professional can give you. For me, my experience, when I found my faith in Christ, I found the most beautiful vision of the world and of where I belonged in it. And if that's something that's missing from your life because somebody or an experience beat you down or tore you apart and shattered you into pieces, surrendering to a higher power can restore you while you figure out the rest of your plan. Engage in activities that might bring calm and happiness, like outdoor activities, yoga, going to new places and meeting new people. So with Rob's permission, I have permission to share his story with you. And part of the interview that did not make it to air today is that Rob is a huge outdoor enthusiast. In fact, part of his serenity is spending time outside, riding his bike on the beach or going to botanical gardens. Rob has a love for the beauty in the world that is art. Rob is an artist at heart. He, at one point, went to school to become a professional artist. And you're going to hear more about that later. But one more thing I absolutely recommend if you are moving forward, creating a new life after trauma, is immerse yourself in uplifting self-care. Yes, nutrition, fitness, sleep habits, dating yourself. And it's not nasty. It means taking yourself out and spoiling yourself in every way that you wish someone else would. These are habits that help to restore you, so you can gain clarity and you can gain focus on what goals would really fulfill you in your new lifestyle. Yes. All right, y'all. We are almost there. It is time to move on. Experience that most of us need to have in order to really appreciate what fidelity means. So when you say your treatment went from bad to worse, you were seeking comfort from an abusive marriage at the end of your marriage with another woman, and she turned out to be more of a monster than your ex.
Yeah, I said a sociopath with narcissistic traits. And it was just basically a word salad, basically, that just scrambled me psychologically. I mean,
you're nodding. You're totally familiar with this.
Would basically put
I love
my
that.
whole
Word
entire
salad.
heart into something. Maybe I was somebody that I was close to, I bonded with.
Yeah.
That maybe.
How does moving forward, looking to date, how does leaving that behind you, how does that affect you in California?
Yeah.
Do we have any not purple-haired women in California? Are there any of you out there that know what your name is and where you? Sorry. I got problems. Right. I know. I'm okay with myself. Oh, dude, I didn't want to say it. He said it. Get mad at him. What's your email address, Rob? No, I'm kidding. Email me, ElizabethSpraggins@alljoyinspired.com. let's have an argument. Speaking of which, you're from New York. He's a fun guy.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy. I've known him for so many years now. So back to what we were saying, as you're moving forward, it's been quite a couple of years since you're divorced now. You've had some time to get to know the world again and, getting to know what kind of woman you feel would be right for you. But how does that memory of that heavy psychological abuse, how does that affect you?
And it's hard to distinguish the ones that are true by character from the ones that are malicious.
So like what's next for you as a man who's newly back into the dating world? What's next for you? Are you just going to do you? You just going to get to know and love you? Or are you just going to get right into, maybe trying to meet some different people and hope that somebody you meet with connects?
Honestly, again, for anybody out there who's stuck, I would totally recommend my friend here, my great friend here.
I am pretty awesome.
Yeah, she is.
But you're awesome too.
She's amazing.
I'm trying to get Rob to become a life coach one of these days, but he's a very busy man.
I'm the type who wants to help people. I don't want to see people out there go through the situation I did. And everybody's got their own situation that they've gone through. But any of you out there, again, that are hesitant or doubtful or even least cynical about what life coaching is, you have to explore it.
They break you down and call you out and tell you they see exactly the mask you think you're hiding and demand that you show them who's behind. And I was finally confronted with the fact that I wasn't hiding what I thought I had so carefully masked for 30 years.
I've always taught people, and I'm sure that's part of your teachings as well, that when you are ashamed of something, the way that you stop its control over you is to talk to people about it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The only way through it is to run towards the pain.
Fascinating story, right? That's a powerful experience that's very common today in society and with men and women who are married or in relationships or partnerships in one way or another. Some of them experience. Okay, so at this point, you can tell where the technical difficulties came in. So I apologize for the volume imbalance, but it's just for a few seconds. I promise it's going to return to normal. Okay, guys, off I go. These abusive environments, and when they are departing or have departed, they get right into another one. And Rob's life experience is something that you've had, right?
It absolutely is. Very abusive marriage, just like he's talking about. Yeah.
On top of being in an abusive marriage, which is it's almost nothing compared to being, experienced with the traumas of war or the traumas of other kinds of extreme situations. So you've got all of these things piled up and all of these things sitting on your shoulders, and you're still here and you're still finding a way to be good to people. And you have found a way to find goodness in the world. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that your story and everything that you've experienced propelled you to want to teach other people how to live a happy, healthy life after going through so much. Would you please tell us a little bit about your program and what your business is?
So first and foremost, let me say I'm not a licensed counselor. I've been through a lot of trauma. I've been with people who've been through a lot of trauma, and it is with all my heart that I want to help. So having said that, I have a 12-week coaching program. I take entrepreneurs, people who are creatively spirited, to take a product or service from startup to online successfully. It works because I have been through so many hours of learning this myself, and I'm a techno geek.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I've tried to make it really simple. I mean, that's one of my specialties, is taking the really complicated and boiling it down to where it's really simple.
Thank God there are people like you out there, Derek, because I can't tell you how many times you and I were going through school at the same time, the same class, and I wanted to pick up my computer, set it on fire, and throw it out of the second story of my windows. So please, thank you for making things simple for those of us dummies out there who speak a different language. So please tell us more about that.
This program is is about getting yourself out. And if you're going to be in business anywhere, you have a public face and you're going to face the public. One of the things I really strongly encourage, and especially online, is be who you be.
What do you mean?
The only person that people want to see, really want to see, is you. Your warts, your wrinkles, no matter what you have.
Derek is touching on something really important. And in my frazzled frustration, I did not clarify this during this interview. But when he's saying be who you be, it relates to leaving an abusive relationship and moving beyond the trauma of an abusive relationship. Because very often, and even in Rob's case, the abuse changes your behavior and changes your vision of yourself. And that changes your path forward in the world. So when he says be who you be, he means getting back in touch with your honest values. What honestly makes you happy, because when you're in an abusive relationship, you're just trying to cope, and your behaviors and your morals and everything that you experience changes to navigate that abuse. But when that abuse is over, those coping behaviors and those coping beliefs and those habits, they stay with you. So be who you be means cleansing all that you changed in order to survive that abuse. Cleaning all that negativity and all that nastiness and all of those chains wrapped around your happy heart and your fulfilling spirit, and learning to walk forward in who you were meant to be, that you decide you want to be. So that's what he meant. Okay, moving forward.
People aren't interested in seeing the perfect person, because perfect doesn't exist except on TikTok. And we know
with AI, everybody's going to be perfect, and those of us speakers are going to be out of a job. So let's enjoy this process while we can. But I totally get what you're saying. Does your 12-week program at some point teach people how to let go of the mask that they wear?
I do. For me personally, I'll call people out, and you can see it in people's writing. You can see it I'd say get on camera, start doing lives, because you can't hide.
Right.
And your first couple of times that you go on camera and people see you see the real person.
Oh yeah.
And when you do, you can say, okay, you're not connecting with your audience. You want to know why? Here's what I see. You aren't being your authentic self. You're speaking the way you think your audience wants to hear you, or the way you think I want you to sound. Stop. The only voice in the world that matters is yours. Use your real voice.
And what do you mean by that? Do you mean that each person with their unique, even severe or very out of the ordinary life experience, do you believe that there are people out there who need to hear that particular message, and that if that person keeps going and getting that message out there, that the right people will find them so they don't have to wear a mask?
It absolutely is. And I'm going to just speak to your audience for a minute.
You have such a powerful program. Would you please, before we have to go, tell us the name of your program and where people can find more information about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I call it the Product Launch Intensive. So it's a 12-week intensive course where we're going to really do a deep dive and learn the technology and stuff to get your idea out there. It could be a podcast, product, or whatever. You can do that at DVET, Delta Victor Echo Tango, dvetdigital.com. Derek Kaz on Facebook. Hit me up on Messenger. It's really the best way to get in touch with me.
Or people could get a hold of me and I will give them that information if they have trouble finding you.
Absolutely.
So what's next when is your launch? I'm so excited. Okay, that's what we're really here for today. When is the launch? When can people finally join this awesome program?
I'm going to start right at the end of September, and I'm starting on my page now to put it out and let people know once or twice a week, hey, I'm getting ready to launch this.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. So I'm trying to work out, can we get financing for people who need it? How can we really help? We're looking into grants that maybe we can help veterans and other trauma victims, cover them. I love to teach, I love to coach, and most of all, like Rob, I love to help.
Right. He's finding his way. I believe Rob is a good-hearted soul, and I believe believe he is right at that doorstep where he's about to find himself on the other side of this. Derek, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. You are such an amazing human being. I am honored to call you my friend. So do you have any parting words for people before we go?
I would just say, one, I think the world of you, Elizabeth, and the work that you do is you're a huge inspiration to me.
Derek, thank you so much. I hope you choose to come back again, and I want to check in with you in a couple of weeks to talk about how awesome your business is going. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, this is Derek Kozlowski, a very good friend of mine, one of our master business owners who's getting ready to launch at the end of September. Go check him out on Facebook at Derek Koz and on the interwide webs at dvetdigital.com. We will see you guys next week. Have a great day. Isn't he fantastic? I absolutely adore Derek. And you know what? I really respect Rob Marshall too. Rob was very generous to share his story with us. I asked him to come on the show today because over the last couple of months, I have encountered more and more men who are moving beyond an abusive relationship than women. And I believe that it's a trend because of the ferocity and the vitriol happening between community members. And we all know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of hatred, a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion circulating in the world these days. And that confusion is causing certain people who would not normally do so treat their spouses with horrific disrespect. And some even fall into an abusive behavior. If you are a male out there and you are suffering abuse in your home, in your relationship, there is help for you available. Derek, you can find his website right here, scrolling across the bottom. Derek is a wonderful man. He has been through the most extreme types of trauma that a human being can experience. And he made it his life's purpose to help other men and women manage and live beyond extreme trauma. If you are beyond that step of severity and you are just finding yourself looking to create a new path, my name's Elizabeth Spraggins, and I am a compassionate and gentle, understanding soul who will get up in your face. But no, seriously though. So I want to thank Derek Kozlowski for sharing his insight today and his expertise on the panel when we were talking about a situation very similar to Rob's that other people have experienced. And I want to send my heartfelt and loving thanks out to Rob Marshall for coming on the show and expressing to men that there is absolutely no shame in being a survivor of an abusive relationship. Men experience abuse too. It is a part of life that there are men out there who are too afraid to get help for themselves because men are supposed to be tough. Men are not supposed to feel bad about something a woman does or a partner does. And yeah, it feels bad. It never feels wonderful when someone you commit to and you give your life to does mean and awful things to you. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It sucks. So, with that, I thank you for being patient with me and our new show structure. I know it was a little goofy. But hopefully you enjoyed the story and the interviews today. And we are going to be back live next week. So thank you for being understanding of our technical and difficulties. My name is Elizabeth Spraggins. I am the founder of All Joy Inspired. I wish you nothing but peace, love, and happiness. And I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for bringing me to air today, even if it had to be pre-recorded, to share my gifts that he gave me with you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a safe weekend. Please don't drink and drive. I'll see you back next week.